South African Olympic and Paralympic sprinter Oscar Pistorius appeared in a crowded Pretoria court on Tuesday in connection with the killing last week of his 29-year-old girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp, whose funeral was held today.
Pistorius, who became emotional during the bail hearing, said in an affidavit presented in court that he was deeply in love with Steenkamp and had no intention to kill her. Prosecutors accused Pistorius of premeditated murder, but Pistorius' family says the evidence in the case strongly refutes any murder at all. Investigators say Steenkamp was shot 4 times inside the athlete's home early last Thursday by a 9mm pistol registered to Pistorius. And now joining us on the phone from Pretoria with more on today's courtroom activities is correspondent Anita Powell. Thanks for joining us again today, Anita.
Thanks, guys.
So maybe give us some insight into what happened in court today. It was a bail hearing. Is it likely that Pistorius will get bail, given what the prosecution is saying?
Well, first off, let's just start by saying it was a terribly dramatic day in court. For much of the proceedings today, we weren't sure whether we were listening to a love story or a murder trial. It was extremely dramatic. As for whether Pistorius is going to get bail, it's an uphill battle for his legal team because the magistrate ruled that it's what's called a Schedule 6 crime, which means the onus is on the defense to prove extraordinary circumstances for him to merit bail. So it looks challenging and possibly unlikely at this time.
Now, we heard just recently that there was a bat found full of blood, and then never mind these 4 gunshots, and then add to that Pistorius' temper. Are the odds kind of looking against him at this point?
It's really hard to say. What we know so far in the courtroom is that neither side disputes that Pistorius shot Steenkamp. What we're arguing about right now is the circumstances and why, and that's what this is all going to boil down to. As for the cricket bat, the prosecution said that the bathroom door through which he shot her had been beaten down. There was no mention of a bat. That comes from an unsourced newspaper report in the City Press newspaper. And as for the other allegations about his temper, that's all been anecdotal so far. In court, he hasn't shown any flashes of temper. He's mainly been sobbing the entire time.
And, I want to talk a little bit more about this sobbing. From what we are hearing, he's been demonstrating such emotion. I wonder if that is helping gather some sympathy for him, at least from those who are kind of in the middle about where really things stand.
It is definitely possible. I mean, in any circumstance, some of the things that have been said are very dramatic and are going to provoke a response. For example, in one of the affidavits presented by Pistorius' friends, she said that Reeva told her that if Oscar had asked her to marry him, she probably would have said yes. It's a really powerful statement. They'd only been dating 3 months. And to hear something like that repeated in a public forum is probably going to affect anybody.
Mm-hmm. And when you also mentioned earlier about the dramatic court scene, you mentioned earlier that it was crowded. A lot of interest in this case, isn't it?
I would say that there were hundreds of international and local journalists, not to mention spectators, court workers, family, and friends.
Okay, well, I know that there's going to be another hearing tomorrow, so hopefully you'll update us on that when that time comes. Thank you so much. That's Anita Powell, who's reporting for us from Pretoria in South Africa.